Ever get that feeling like the internet just isn't what it used to be, like it's lost its spark?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, today we're going deep on a theory that tries to explain that exact feeling, the dead internet theory.
It's a really interesting theory and a little unsettling.
Yeah, for sure. It's been making the rounds online, getting a lot of attention.
And for good reason, it makes you think, makes you question some things.
It does. So we've gathered a ton of research and reports on this. We're going to sift through all of it.
Yeah, try to figure out what's really going on.
By the end of this deep dive, you'll have a much better understanding of what this dead internet theory is all about. Sound good?
Absolutely.
All right, let's dive in. So first things first, what exactly is this dead internet theory?
Well, it's not about the internet like literally shutting down, going offline.
Oh, okay. So no zombie apocalypse situation.
Right. It's more about a shift in the type of content we see online and who's creating it.
Okay, so less about broken cables and more about what? Broken connections?
Exactly. It's this idea that genuine human interaction online is declining, maybe even disappearing.
And being replaced by,
Bots, AI, automated stuff.
whoa. Okay, so less real people, more machines.
That's the gist of it.
That is kind of creepy. When did this whole theory even start?
Well, it first popped up back in 2021 on a forum called Agora Road.
Agora Road. Never heard of it.
It's kind of an obscure corner of the internet, but that's where this theory first took root. The basic idea is that sometime around 2016, 2017, things started to change.
What do you mean change?
The balance of online interaction shifted. Instead of real people driving online activity, it was automated entities taking over.
So like more bots than people.
In a way, yes.
And that's supposed to be the dead internet.
That's the core of the theory.
Interesting.
And then, of course, in 2022, something happened that really threw fuel on the fire.
ChatGPT.
Bingo! ChatGPT came out, and suddenly everyone was talking about AI.
Yeah, it felt like the whole world was talking about it, like overnight.
It was huge, and it really made people wonder just how much of what we see online is actually coming from a person.
Right, because that thing can write, like, scarily well, like a real person.
Exactly. So it really plays into this whole dead internet theory.
Makes it seem even more plausible. Like maybe it's already happening.
And that ties directly into the AI-generated content issue, which is a huge part of the dead internet theory.
Okay, let's break that down. We're talking about things like what? AI systems that can write articles, blog posts, even social media posts?
All of that. Anything you can think of, really. And these systems are getting so good, it's practically impossible to tell the difference between what's human-written and what's AI-generated.
Right, like those articles I've seen that were written by AI, I would have never guessed it wasn't a person. It's kind of freaky, honestly.
It is. And these things, they're called large language models, or LLMs. GPT-3 is a really famous example.
GPT-3, yep, I've heard of that one.
And there's an expert, Timothy Shoup. He's from the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies. And he predicts that 99.9% of all internet content could be AI generated in the future.
99.9%. That's basically everything.
It is. It's a pretty wild prediction, but it really gets to the heart of this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, if most of what we're reading and watching online is made by machines, where does that leave us humans? Are we just going to be passive consumers of all this AI-generated stuff?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it raises a lot of concerns about the future of online communities, creativity, even how we form opinions, if most of what we're consuming is coming from algorithms.
So we've got AI potentially writing our news and entertainment. But the dead internet theory goes even further than that, right?
What
It's
is
not
that?
just about the content itself. It's about who's interacting with it.
Exactly.
And that's where the bots come in.
Absolutely. Bot activity is another major part of this whole theory. In fact, there was this report back in 2016 by Imperva. They found that 52% of all internet traffic was from bots.
Wait, 52%? More than half.
More than half, not humans, bots.
That's a lot more than I would guessed. I had no idea.
It's a pretty crazy number. And the thing about bots is they're not all bad.
Oh, okay. So there are good bots.
Yeah, some are harmless, like the ones that collect data for websites. But then there are the bad ones, the ones that are designed to spread misinformation, manipulate trending topics, even impersonate real people.
So it's not as simple as saying all bots are bad. It's about figuring out which ones are harmless and which ones are causing trouble.
Exactly.
And I bet that's really hard to do.
It is. Because these sophisticated bots, they're designed to blend in with human users. It's almost impossible to tell them apart sometimes.
Like those I hate texting tweets that went viral a while back. Weren't those spread by bots or
A
something?
lot of people believe so. It was kind of like a demonstration of the dead internet theory in action.
Showing how good these bots are at mimicking human behavior. That's both impressive and a little unnerving. Like, if they can pull that off, what else are they capable of?
Yeah,
And when we talk about bots and online manipulation, it's impossible to ignore social media, right?
definitely. Social media is a big part of this whole conversation.
Ground zero for the dead internet theory, you could say.
Exactly. Let's start with Facebook. Back in 2019, they deactivated 5.4 billion fake accounts, just to give you a sense of the scale of the problem.
5.4 billion. That's insane. That's like more than the population of the entire planet.
It's a constant battle for these platforms.
It really is like whack-a-mole, but the moles keep multiplying.
And then you've got Twitter, which has been a whole other can of worms when it comes to bots.
Especially since Elon Musk took over.
Right. He came in claiming that a huge chunk of Twitter users were actually bots. Way more than Twitter had publicly acknowledged.
Yeah, that whole back and forth definitely added fuel to the dead internet fire.
It did, and it really highlighted how difficult it is to accurately measure bot activity.
Because how do you determine what's a bot and what's a real person? Especially with these advanced bots that are designed to look and act like us.
Right. It's like a blurry line.
Totally. And then there's YouTube, which has its own issues with bots.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I remember a while back there was all this talk about fake views on YouTube and how that was messing with creators.
Absolutely. Fake views have been a persistent problem. And it raises concerns about YouTube's algorithms. Like, what if the algorithms start mistaking artificial engagement for genuine human interaction?
Whoa. So instead of recognizing real people, the algorithm starts thinking the fake engagement is what's normal.
That's the worry. It's a phenomenon that YouTube developers even have a name for. They call it the inversion.
The inversion, wow. That's a little scary, to be honest.
It is. It shows how bot activity can really distort things. And it's not just a small problem either. There was this company, Devumi.com. They sold fake YouTube views.
Wait, people actually buy fake views?
Yep. And Devumi, they generated over $1.2 million in just 3 years.
$1 million.
Yeah.
Just from selling fake views.
Just from fake views. It's a big business.
That's wild. It really makes you wonder how much of what you see online is real, you know?
Yeah.
Especially when there's that much money to be made from faking it.
Exactly. And that's a big part of what drives this whole phenomenon, the economic incentives.
So it kind of sounds like we're living in a bit of a digital ghost town, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
But before we go full-on doomsday with this dead internet theory, are there any arguments against it? Like anything that challenges this whole bots and AI are taking over idea?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's not all doom and gloom. There's actually some evidence that contradicts the dead internet theory.
Really? Like what?
Well, there's this report from 2019, the Bad Bot Report by Distill Networks.
Okay.
And they actually found that bad bot traffic decreased from previous years. In fact, human traffic was the majority that year, about 62.1% of all internet traffic.
So maybe the internet isn't as dead as some people think?
Right. It's not that simple.
Okay, so wait. If bad bot traffic is going down, doesn't that, like, weaken the whole dead internet theory argument?
Well, the thing is, while the overall amount of bad bot traffic might have decreased, the report also found that the bots that are out there are getting much more sophisticated.
Oh, so they're harder to catch.
Exactly. They're better at mimicking human behavior, making them harder to detect.
So it's like even though there might be fewer bad bots, the ones that are still around are sneakier.
Exactly. They're called advanced persistent bots. They're kind of like digital chameleons.
Blending right in.
Right. And that's why it's so hard to get an accurate picture of how much bot activity is really going on.
It makes sense. It's like a constant cat and mouse game.
Totally. The bots are always evolving, and the people
Yeah.
trying to identify them are always having to catch up.
Always one step behind.
Right. And the report brought up another interesting point, too.
What's that?
It's about where these bad bots are coming from. The perceived origin is often not the reality.
Okay, what does that mean? Like people assume they're coming from one place, but they're actually coming from somewhere else.
Exactly. A lot of data on IP blocking pointed to Russia and Ukraine as the source of a lot of bad bot traffic. But when they dug deeper, they found that most of it was actually coming from the Netherlands and the United States.
Whoa, really? That's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, it just goes to show that things aren't always what they seem online. It's easy to jump to conclusions.
It's easy to make assumptions without having all the facts.
Right. And I think that's a good reminder to approach the dead internet theory with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Okay, so the dead internet theory might not be the whole story, but clearly something is up with all these bots and AI-generated content. So where does that leave us? What's the takeaway for the average person who's just trying to, like, navigate the online world?
I think the main thing to remember is that the internet is constantly changing. It's not a static thing. The lines between human-generated content and AI-generated content are blurring, and the role of automation is getting more and more complex.
It's like we're in this weird in-between phase where we're not really sure what the internet is becoming,
Yeah, it's a little unsettling.
like walking into a room and not recognizing anything.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And in this new digital landscape, it's more important than ever to be discerning about the information we come across. We need to be critical thinkers, question what we see, and be aware of the potential for manipulation and misinformation.
So it's not about, like, abandoning the internet or being afraid of it. It's about becoming a more savvy user.
Right. Understanding the forces at play.
It's like learning the rules of the road before you get behind the wheel.
Exactly. And while there are risks, there's also tremendous potential for positive change. AI and automation can be powerful tools for connection, creativity, even problem solving. It's all about how we use them.
So it's not a question of, is the internet dead? It's more like, how do we make sure the internet stays a good thing?
That's a great way to put it. It's a conversation we all need to be having.
So we've talked about a lot: the dead internet theory, the evidence for and against it, AI writing content, bots influencing interactions online. What's the biggest thing that stands out to you in all of this?
For me, it's the complexity of it all. You can't just say yes or no to the question, is the internet dead?
Yeah, it's not black and white.
It's this massive, ever-changing thing
Constantly evolving.
with human and automated players, and their interactions are always shifting.
That's a great point. It really is complex. And in something that complex, there are bound to be some, risks involved. Like we've talked about misinformation, manipulation. Seems like there's a lot of potential for things to go wrong.
Absolutely. We can't ignore those risks. They're real concerns. The potential for manipulation, the spread of misinformation, and even losing that genuine human connection, it's a real worry.
Like a digital version of the tragedy of the commons.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
So what can we do about it? If we don't want to see the internet turn into some kind of dystopian wasteland, how do we make sure it stays a place where we can connect, create, and share, in a good way?
I think awareness is key.
Awareness of what?
Of the forces at play online, the potential pitfalls.
And how we can be manipulated.
Right. The more we understand these things, the better we'll be able to navigate this online world safely and responsibly.
So it's not about being scared of the internet or, like, avoiding it. It's about being informed
Exactly. Being a critical thinker.
and proactive in shaping the online experience we want to have.
Right. And it's important to remember, while there are risks, there's also huge potential.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier.
AI and automation, for all their challenges, they can also be used to do incredible things.
Right. To connect people, solve problems, spark creativity.
Exactly.
It's all about how we use these tools. So maybe it's not about, is the internet dead, but more like, how can we make sure the internet stays a force for good?
I love that. It really reframes the whole thing.
What do you think, listener? Does the dead internet theory resonate with your own experiences online? What do you think the future holds for the internet? We want to hear from you.
Join the conversation on social media. Tell us your thoughts.
Because maybe the internet isn't dead, but it's definitely changing. It's going through a metamorphosis.
And how that transformation plays out, well, that's up to us.